All right, the Centers for Disease Control here in Atlanta said yesterday that the country's official statistics concerning the coronavirus, the pandemic, were significantly lowballing the number of cases and deaths. The official statistics are considerably lowballing those numbers. In fact, across the nation now, the actual number of infected people has been anywhere from 2 to 13 times as high as the reported cases. What do we have? We have 150,000 almost people who have died from this. What do we have? 3 million cases is more like 30 million, depending on the region of the country. And that's according to new data published by the CDC. Dr. Fiona Havers, the CDC researcher who led the study, said in an email this, and let's look for Dr. Fiona Havers to lose her job very soon. But this is what she said in an email, quote, "These data continue to show that the number of people who have been infected with the virus that causes COVID-19 far exceeds the number of reported cases," end quote. Adios, Dr. Havers. You did the one fatal thing in this corrupt, filthy administration. You spoke the truth. In the U.S. right now, we are testing roughly 700,000 people a day out of a population of roughly 330 million. But with roughly 40% of people infected by the virus showing no symptoms, the study from the CDC shows the need to increase testing to contain the viral spread in parts of the country. And what is the orange ape talking about? Oh, we don't need more tests because, tests make more cases of the disease. Oh, my God. Now, this report comes just a week after the apes administration got control of virus data from the CDC, putting the Department of Health and Human Services in charge of collecting numbers from hospitals about patients, about available beds, about ventilators. The Department of Health and Human Services? When Trump, with the help of his Russian handlers, took over the presidency of the United States, the CDC was seen as a respected epidemiological center, globally speaking. Whether an epidemic arose in South America, Central America, Asia, Africa, Europe, the United States, North America, it didn't matter. The CDC was on the front lines of tracking, helping, sending in medical personnel, doing the research, testing, until this orange son of a bitch in the White House took it away from them, denigrated them, as he denigrates everything he touches. Yesterday, Biden unveiled his plan to create jobs for caregivers and increase access to affordable home health care workers. $775 billion plan. In a speech in Delaware, he said, quote, "Families are squeezed emotionally and financially. They need help, but too often they can't afford it." Yeah, this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is where capitalism shows how wonderfully efficient it is. Do you know what it's efficient at? Making a profit, a huge profit for the 1/100th of 1%, and destroying everybody else, slowly but surely. And the sad part of it is so many people being destroyed are not aware of the destruction. The healthcare sector, by the way, is the largest employer in the country. And a huge chunk of those jobs that Biden's talking about belongs to domestic caregivers. But there's still a need, a tremendous need for more, because we have a system in this country that's based on profit, on sickness and death, profit on illness, profit. If there's no profit, there will be no treatment. If there's no treatment, there will be increased disease. If there's increased disease, there will be more death. That's a direct line from for-profit healthcare to death. A straight line. About 800,000 Medicaid recipients are on a waiting list for home care. How many of those folks are going to be dead before the home care is ever delivered? And this is what the ape and his Nazis around him, this is what they're counting on. People of color, old people, sick people. This is just like Hitler. This is the same goddamn thing. Except it's not Jews and homosexuals and communists and liberals and labor organizers and union members yet. But Trump has his list. But beyond how many people are needed in the home healthcare business, especially now, tens of millions of Americans, predominantly women, provide the caregiving work each year without getting any compensation. Whether they're taking care of their husband, their children, their aging parents, their grandparents. Who compensates these people, predominantly women? Nobody. Nobody. The Biden proposal wants to address each of those issues in different ways. Times reports the proposal would fund 150,000 new community healthcare jobs, end the Medicaid waiting list, those 800,000 people waiting, give tax breaks and Social Security credits to informal caretakers who don't work in order to care for a family member. And while Biden is presenting that, yesterday the Orange Ape instructed the foreign government to exclude undocumented immigrants when allotting House seats to each state after this year's census results come in. Now, what does that mean? On the surface, you may think, oh, well, they don't have any reason to be included anyway. Right. Just say, do you remember reading in high school about the 3/5 compromise? Do you remember that? Where human beings then were considered 3/5 of a human being because they were enslaved people. Trump wants to take it one step further. He wants to eliminate people. Do you think African enslaved people were here as people who had the same rights as white Americans? No. But they were still counted 3/5 of a human being for congressional representational reasons. But now Trump says, no, we don't want to count anybody. Except what, you orange son of a bitch? White males? The move that he proposed to eliminate undocumented immigrants would exclude millions of people, largely racial and ethnic minorities. Oh, there's a surprise. And that is a counteracting move on long-standing federal policy, which has been to count all census respondents regardless of citizenship or legal status. What they're looking for, when you get right down to it, is how many people are here. And in a letter to the Commerce, or a memo to the Commerce Department that somebody wrote for him, the Orange Ape said this, quote, "The radical left is trying to erase the idea of citizenship," end quote. That sounds like something from the Nazi Jew Stephen Miller, doesn't it? Last year, the Supreme Court blocked the Ape from adding a citizenship question to the census. The Supreme Court ruled that the Ape's administration's reasoning, quote, appears to have been contrived, end quote. Oh, I love flowery language, don't you? Now, meantime, Republicans reached an agreement on their opening terms as they step into so-called negotiations with House Democrats on the next round of I don't want to call it stimulus legislation because it's not. It's survival legislation while we're dealing with the coronavirus. You know, money, how much money goes to Americans? That's survival. It's survival. But among themselves, according to the New York Times, Republicans acknowledge that these negotiations are likely to stretch into August, meaning that the expected unemployment insurance benefits, or I should say expanded, the ones people are getting now, will expire before the new bill is passed. It runs out the 31st, 8 days from now, the expanded unemployment. Then what? 23 million people are going to lose the one income source that has kept the rent paid, or the mortgage payment paid, or the car payment paid, or whatever. Well, these filthy, stinking, Nazi-like Republicans whine and wheeze and bitch about how much to take away from people. And while all this is going on, Twitter, finally, is taking aim at QAnon, that conspiracy theory gang of half-wits whose followers are among Trump's most extreme supporters. Of course they are. So Twitter has banned over 7,000 accounts associated with that sick, fucked up movement in recent weeks. QAnon. QAnon. Every time I see that, it reminds me of Q-tips. You ignorant savages, good God. And you cluster around Trump. Yeah, well, that figures. Yesterday, Twitter announced that it would stop recommending accounts and content related to QAnon and would limit the reach of such content on its trending search pages, whatever the hell that means. I don't have any problem with censorship when what is being censored is not the free and open exchange of ideas. Oh, bullshit to that. What it is lies and deception and a corruption of democratic principles and equal justice and a move to fascism. And we have a question about eliminating that kind of speech. That's not free speech. That's filth, sick, crap, garbage. There's no such thing as unbridled free speech, as a Supreme Court justice made famous a long time ago by saying, you cannot cry falsely fire in a crowded theater. And I've said before, here in Georgia, if I walk up to somebody and say, you rotten son of a bitch, that person has a defensible response. He can shoot me. Oh, yeah, I live in Georgia, folks. QAnon followers have been involved in armed standoffs, kidnappings, killings. It was designated as a domestic terrorism threat by the FBI last year. Well, what the hell has taken Twitter this long? And many of the accounts that Twitter suspended have been involved in coordinated harassment campaigns against individuals. Just drive them crazy. Miserable. God, boy, see, there I go again. Come on, Mike, try nonviolence. Yeah, okay. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.